Hello there, you're watching AL24 News live from Algiers. Coming up next in our World News program. Escalations are on the rise in Kazakhstan due to clashes between security forces and the protesters in refusal of price spike. Plus, world's top tennis player Djokovic is threatened with deportation by Australian authorities because he didn't meet COVID vaccine entry requirements to the country. Also coming up in our World News program, Cambodia's Prime Minister Hun Sen met with an honorary guard and the red carpet in Myanmar today, Friday. And former President Donald Trump was rebuked by President Joe Biden on Thursday for spreading a big falsehood about the 2020 U.S. elections being arranged and inciting an angry mob of his fans to storm Congress on January the 6th, 2021. Thank you for joining us. First, in our top stories, the Presidency of the Republic said in a statement that President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, received Thursday Malian Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Abdoulaye Diop, conveying a message from Mali's interim President, Assimi Goïta. The meeting enabled informing President Tebboune of the solutions proposed on the international scene to end the current crisis in Mali.
Carrying a message from His Excellency Assimi Goïta, President of the Transition and Head of State of Mali, to his brother, His Excellency Abdelmajid Tebboune, President of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. This message is part of the relations of solidarity, friendship, fraternity, and good neighborliness that have always existed between Mali and Algeria. The message that I have the honor and pleasure of delivering to His Excellency President Tebboune focuses on the situation in Mali, particularly the progress and difficulties linked to the transition process that was marked recently by the holding in Mali of the National Conference on Reflection and Development. The National Conference on Refundation, which enabled the Malians to talk to each other, to take ownership of their destiny, and to share their vision for Mali and to set out the stages and prospects. Algeria, as a neighboring country, is more concerned by what is happening in Mali, and it is in this context that President Goïta asked us and the delegation accompanying me to come and share with his elder brother the message and recommendations that came out of his national conference, which is aimed to strengthening democracy in Mali, but also peace and stability. Algeria continues to play an essential role as a strategic partner and ally of Mali, but also as a country that stands by Mali in solidarity to accompany us in our efforts to bring peace and stability. I would like in particular to salute the role that Algeria is playing alongside us, notably through my brother Ramtana Mamra, who has been an essential actor and architect of this process, which is our process for which we have really asked for Algeria's support. So I was saying that this meeting was really to share all these elements so that as neighbors, the Algerian president would be fully informed of what is going on and that he could also give us the necessary advice for the next steps, because the stability of Mali and also the stability of Algeria, and we are all together. Our peoples are experiencing the same difficulties and share the same hopes, so it is in the context that we have come to share this information and to ask that Mali, as a neighboring country of Algeria, continue to benefit from support and solidarity. I think it is a tautology, an obviousness to ask for this, because on a daily basis, Algeria is present at Mali's side, often in discreet manner, but it is always there. It is always present. So it is in this context that we came and we really listened frankly to the messages, the advice that the President gave us, and that we will also make it our duty to faithfully transmit to his brother President Goïta, and we are certain that his wisdom based on Algeria's experience are elements that will also help Mali, the Malian people, the President and the government as a whole, to be able to work together for a lasting peace and stability in our region, and also for the reinforcement of democracy in each of our countries.
While some countries or Western countries accept the spread of Omicron as a step towards living with the virus, Asian economies are tightening internal borders and restrictions. The different paths come amid a growing consensus that the variant is much less likely to cause serious illness and death than the Delta variant, despite spreading much faster than its predecessor. A feature that has nonetheless put pressure on hospitals and worsened the shortage of healthcare workers. And to know more about the spread of Omicron around the world, let's follow this report by Marwa Bilayawar.
A strict lockdown after an outbreak of the Delta variant in Xi'an resulted in the loss of a pregnant Chinese woman of her unborn child after being refused to enter hospital until she was tested negative, as well as the death of an elderly man with a heart attack because they refused to give him care. The incidents created an anger of citizens on social media, which led Xi'an's president to apologize for the situation. India reports an increase in cases as Omicron variant overtakes Delta in cities where the deadly second wave emerged. It has reported over 117,000 new COVID-19 cases, an extreme increase in a week and the most since early June of last year. The Health Ministry also reported 302 new deaths. Daily infections have increased over 2 days this week, which made some experts worry could again see the country's hospitals overwhelmed. 125 infected passengers on a chartered flight from Milan tested positive for COVID-19 upon their arrival to the Indian city of Amritsar. At least 13 passengers have escaped institutional quarantine, while 9 of them escaped from the airport and 4 others ran away from the local hospital. A total of 116 passengers were traveling on the Italy-India flight. Reports said that children and newborns were exempted from testing. French Parliament approved President Emmanuel Macron's plan to obtain a vaccine permit to help curb the spread of the Omicron variant, after a heated debate raised after Macron's statement that he wanted to stir up the unvaccinated. Macron told Le Parisien newspaper that he wants to make the lives of those who refuse a COVID-19 vaccine so complicated by putting pressure on them outside public spaces. The Thai government announced that it will reimpose the quarantine system on incoming travelers due to the outbreak of the new coronavirus. Thailand authorities affirmed that they will extend the suspension of its quarantine waiver program and impose new restrictions after a jump in new coronavirus cases. But at the same time, they noted that current applicants of the Test and Go exemptions program can still enter Thailand without quarantine until January 15th. Daily cases of the coronavirus more than doubled in Romania after the easing of restrictions imposed during the winter holidays, and officials expect the 5th wave of the epidemic to witness double the number of cases the previous wave. The country in the European Union in terms of vaccination rates, only about 14% of its population have received their full vaccinations, amid distrust of state institutions and a weak vaccination culture.
And now escalations are on the rise in Kazakhstan due to clashes between security forces and the protesters in refusal of price spike. Kazakh President Kassym Tokayev announced on a televised speech on local media that he gave orders to security forces to open fire without warnings against what he considered bandits. Ayedi Usama reports.
Kazakhstan unrest is still witnessing disturbances after the deployment of Russian peacekeeping troops to the epicenter of the riots in Almaty, near the main square. According to the Interior Ministry of the country, 60 armed people and 18 security officers were killed, including one who was beheaded during the clashes between protesters and security forces. Interior Ministry also announced that more than 3,000 people have been arrested, and local media said 70 checkpoints had been set up across the country. In a televised address on Friday, Kassym Kemilovich Tokayev stated that he had given security forces orders to open fire without warning if there were further disturbances. After he imposed a curfew on Almaty, the country's former capital, where thousands of people had taken to the streets. In addition, he declared a state of emergency, which was later made nationwide. Tokayev also approved the resignation of the government and requested support from the Collective Security Treaty Organization. The president made reference to 20,000 bandits who had attacked the country's largest city of Almaty and vowed to destroy them. Later on, he declared that constitutional order was mainly restored after the unprecedented unrest in recent days. Tokayev thanked Russia's President Vladimir Putin for sending troops and said the peacekeeping force would be in the country on a short-term basis. Russia's defense ministry stated that military units were flying to Kazakhstan round the clock and were in control of the airport in Almaty, which was captured by protesters on Wednesday. According to Kazakh government, the organization's forces have been arriving to the country but have not been involved in the elimination of militants.
World's top tennis player is threatened with deportation by Australian authorities because he did not meet COVID vaccine entry requirements to hit the country. Djokovic is now in a hotel for special cases like his and is waiting for the court decision. Marian Ziana reports.
Novak Djokovic's visa was suspended due to a row over his medical exemption from COVID vaccination, and he's now facing deportation. According to border officials, Djokovic failed to submit adequate documentation to meet the country's admission standards. He is presently being held at Melbourne Immigration Detention Centre. Djokovic arrived in Melbourne's airport with the intention of defending his Australian Open title, and shared on his Instagram that he had received an exemption to play on the 17th without getting vaccinated. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said Djokovic did not provide officials with evidence of double vaccination or an adequate medical exemption.
There should be no special rules for Novak Djokovic at all, none whatsoever. And so if medical exemptions have been provided by medical professionals and that's been furnished to him as a proviso for him to get on that plane, well, that will have to stack up when he arrives in Australia.
The Instagram post of the sports star was met with a public outcry, especially that Australians were deprived to travel or host people from overseas due to the pandemic. However, his family, fans, and even the Serbian president supported him. His father and mother claimed that their son was held captive for 5 hours and that this is considered as harassment.
As a mother, what can I say? If you are a mother, you can just imagine how can I feel. I feel terrible. Since yesterday, last 24 hours, that they are keeping him as a prisoner. It's just not fair. It's not human. So I just hope that he will be strong, as we are trying also to be very strong, to give him some energy to keep on going. I hope that he will win.
The president said to Djokovic on a phone call that
the whole of Serbia is with you, and all our authorities are undertaking all measures in order for that maltreatment of the world's best tennis player ends as soon as possible.
The 34-year-old had previously expressed opposition to being vaccinated when it was suggested that the COVID-19 vaccine might be mandatory for the tournament to resume in April 2020, and denied to share his vaccination publicly. Djokovic is currently waiting for his trial's decision while detained in an immigrant hostel.
Cambodia's Prime Minister Hun Sen met with an honorary guard on the red carpet in Myanmar on Friday, just as protests by coup opponents took place in other parts of the country, fearing that his trip would provide more legitimacy to the junta. Hun Sen's two-day visit to Myanmar military is the first by a head of government in Myanmar since the military overthrew the elected administration of Aung San Suu Kyi on February the 1st last year, sparking months of protest and a bloody crackdown. Former President Donald Trump was rebuked by President Joe Biden on Thursday for spreading a big falsehood about the 2020 U.S. election being arranged and inciting an angry mob of his fans to storm Congress on January the 6th, 2021. In a delivered speech, Biden made a harsh impeachment on Trump and as a defeated president who still threatens American democracy. Still with the same story, the U.S. Democrats commemorated on Thursday 1-year anniversary of Capitol attack, which took place in Washington, D.C., led by the supporters of the former president of the United States, Donald Trump. In this regard, President Joe Biden delivered a speech addressing the nation over the acts of the Capitol riot. Sayedi Usama reports.
January 6th is the day to commemorate 1-year anniversary of U.S. Capitol attack, which was described by American officials to be unprecedented assault of the country's democracy. Capitol riots witnessed the deployment of former President Donald Trump's supporters to Washington, D.C. as Congress was meeting to certify Joe Biden as U.S. president.
We have just been through an intense election and emotions are high, but now tempers must be cooled and calm restored.
President Joe Biden addressed the nation on Thursday in a speech to show his refusal to such acts in the United States, and he added that the former President Donald Trump lied to the nation and tried to prevent the peaceful transition of power.
Even before the first ballot was cast, the former president was preemptively sowing doubt about the election results. He built his lie over months. Wasn't based on any facts.
President Joe Biden also explained that presidency of the country should unite the people and not work only on individuals, and that the authority of the nation will always be transmitted peacefully. The Vice President of the United States also addressed the nation from Capitol as all Democrats stand together for democracy and country and deny similar acts of what happened in Capitol.
I will stand in this breach. I will defend this nation. And I will allow no one to place a dagger at the throat of democracy.
President Joe Biden and his vice president, in addition to House Speaker and leading Democrat figures, held a moment of silence for the people who were put to death in the U.S. Capitol. As reported by U.S. President, the acts of violence were meant to destabilize the country's sovereignty and peace. He added that he would never permit such acts to take place in the United States.
A mob breaking windows, kicking in doors, breaching the Capitol, American flags on poles being used as weapons, as spears, fire extinguishers being thrown at the heads of police officers. A crowd that professes their love for law enforcement assaulted those police officers, dragged them, sprayed them, stomped on them. Over 140 police officers were injured.
A year after the violent assault of the U.S. Capitol, Americans remain deeply concerned about the health of their democracy and about the violence against the government.
China's activity in the East China Sea have raised concerns for the US and Japan. These two countries showed their discomfort concerning the ambiguous activity of the Chinese forces in the region. The joint comment of the two allies highlights how deepening alarm about China and increasing tension over Taiwan have put Japan's security role in greater focus. Talks between US and Russia diplomats begin in Geneva on January the 9th after a weeks-long standoff over Russia troop deployments near its border with Ukraine, with veteran envoys on each side trying to avert a crisis. Marwa Bilayawar again.
Constant accusations and denials concerning the Russia-Ukraine tensions, tough talks between President Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin, and Russia pressing the United States for security guarantees. A conflict erupted in early 2014. The two sides are hopeful is going to end during diplomatic talks set for January in Geneva, which they consider a key to easing tensions. The Geneva talks between US and Russian diplomats on January 9th will be held with veteran envoys on each side in an attempt to prevent a crisis, as Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman will face Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybkov, in which both have a vast diplomatic experience. Russia claimed that it is not preparing for an invasion after building up nearly 100,000 troops on Ukraine's borders. However, it is demanding NATO to stop its military expansion and remove some of its infrastructures in its eastern members.
Russia and the US have the most powerful nuclear powers, and they are the main responsible for the security in Europe. We are interested in peace and security on the European continent, and President Putin underlined in several occasions that we do not want conflict. We urge the American side to take very seriously the Russian initiative.
The last phone call between President Joe Biden and President Vladimir Putin consisted of Biden insisting that US and European allies would impose unprecedented sanctions if Russia chose to invade Ukraine. Meanwhile, Putin responded that sanctions could lead to an extreme de-escalation in their ties. Risks of a deterioration of US-Russia relations amid Russia's actions that have raised inclusive concerns about its intentions in Eastern Europe. Another raised concern for Washington is Russia's latest move, as the latter is sending troops to suppress anti-government protests in neighboring Kazakhstan this week.
And for more world news, let's follow this report by Miriam Zian.
The United States has barred 8 Cuban government officials from entering the country, accusing them of being implicated in the repression of peaceful protesters last July. The top U.S. diplomat pointed specifically to the treatment of Cuban protesters who took the streets in July in a wave of unprecedented demonstrations against rising food prices, medicine shortages, and other socio-economic issues on the island. As the two countries pledged to enhance defense cooperation in response to new and emerging challenges, Japan and the US expressed worry over China's ongoing efforts to undermine the rules-based international order. In a virtual meeting, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Japanese Foreign Minister Yoshima Haschai, and the two countries' defense ministers discussed strengthening security ties in the face of an increasing focus on Japan's international role. 3 people have been killed in Sudan during protests against military rule in various parts of the country on Thursday, Sudanese Central Medical Committee announced. The committee said in a statement that the 3 people were killed during protests in the towns of Omdurman and Bahri. Both cities are near the capital, Khartoum, after security forces opened fire on them. This brings the total number of demonstrators killed since the beginning of the protest movements to 60 people. After an explosion in Saudi Arabia that seriously injured a French driver, authorities are examining the incident. France is considering cancelling the Dakar rally. On Tuesday, French prosecutors said that they have launched a terror investigation into the December 30th blast in Jeddah that left 61-year-old driver Philippe Boutron in need of surgery for significant leg injuries before returning to France. A delegation from the Polisario Front, led by its representative in Europe and the European Union, Oubi Boushraya Bashir, denounced Paris' foreign policy toward Western Sahara before the French National Assembly on Thursday, emphasizing that the referendum route is the only real way to end the conflict in Africa's last colony.
And we wrap up our news edition with World News Economy in this report by Nabil Khazini.
The French National Commission for Informatics and Freedom imposes on Google to pay 150 million euros and Facebook 60 million euros for violating European rules on the protection of private data. US tech giants, including the likes of Apple and Amazon, have come under growing pressure over their businesses' practices across Europe, where they have faced massive fines and plans to impose far-reaching EU rules on how they operate. Kazakhstan plunged into chaos this week. An internet shutdown hit the world's second biggest Bitcoin mining hub. The internet shutdown in Kazakhstan took an estimated 15% of the world's Bitcoin miners offline. According to the Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance, Kazakhstan is just behind the US in terms of its share of the global Bitcoin mining market, with 18.1% of all crypto mining. Technology giant Samsung Electronics announced it expects a 52% jump in profit for the last 3 months of 2021. The global chip shortage was in favor of the Korean company, which estimates that it made $11.5 billion won in the period. This comes after the company's chip manufacturing operation in Xi'an, China, went into lockdown from 23 December following a coronavirus outbreak. Qatar Airways company blames the European plane maker Airbus for surface flaws on A350 jetliners. The Gulf company also asked for additional compensation of $4 million for every day, or 21 days, the period of the company's A350 planes remained grounded. Qatar Airways also asked France-based Airbus not to attempt to deliver any more of the jets until what it describes as a design defect has been fixed.
That's all for me, Nadia Kasmi, and the rest of the team. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.